Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Triathlon Weekly News Roundup presented by thefeed.com. If you haven't already, please head to the link in the description. Join my Daily Tri team where you get $20 off, no strings attached every quarter. If you spend a certain amount, you can get a free Daily Tri water bottle. And Daily Tri merch is pretty rare right now, although I will be working on getting some new merch out there eventually, hopefully in the next couple of months. So stay tuned for that. But diving into, as we always do, race results first, news headlines, and what's coming up next, and we've got lots to talk about. But first, those are race results. Two new world champions were crowned at Townsville, Australia, the World Triathlon Long Distance Champs. And it's such a cool distance, 3K swim, 120K bike, and a 30K run, something I'd love to see the PTO do in the future. But it was Antonio Benito Lopez who took that world champion crown. He was second last year to Clement Mignon, but takes it this year over Steve McKenna. It was the run, as it always does for him, that got the job done. He was running a 2:25 marathon pace in that heat in Australia. It was a brutal day apparently. And yeah, 2:25 marathon pace over 30K. I know it's a shorter bike, a shorter swim, but that's still insane. And I'm telling you, bookmark this name. You heard it here first at the Daily Tri. He is going to be a top contender in Kona. If he can get into the right bike group, he's a great swimmer. He is one that could really feature if he can unleash his run. But Steve McKenna as well, he's going to be another good one to look out for in Kona. And both of those guys now have a really good block and don't really struggle in the heat. But then on the women's side, Charline Clavel, this was an exciting race. She took the win over another French athlete, Julie Emelot, had a big lead off of the swim. And actually all three of the women on the podium there are super exciting to follow. Make sure you remember these names. They just keep getting better and better. But Clavel was a professional handball player for 10 years, and she is climbing the ranks steadily and takes a world championship title. But then over to 70.3 Talon, where 20-year-old Panagiotis took the win, became European champion with a 1:09 run. I'm so excited to see more of this guy. Belinda Granger says if you've been following the sport closely, you will know how much talent he has, and he's clearly proved that. Apparently, I was wrong in my highlights video. It sounds like he has a new coach, and he said it owes a lot to him because just 4 weeks before the race, he was feeling crap mentally and really hopeless. So what a turnaround for him, the European champ. And South African pro triathlete Jamie Riddle also shared an insight that he borrowed wheels for the race, so making it even more impressive. But speaking of impressive, Carolyn Pohl on the women's side. I've been mentioning her name. I mentioned it in last week's news as well. I think this is finally what I expected to see from her. Led gun to tape, which is so hard to do. Not many people have done that before. Looks like Kat Matthews wants to see her as a T100 wildcard as much as I do. And I just can't wait as well to see what she does next. She's going to be racing 70.3 Worlds. We know that. And she's on the start line for ZLMC this next week. But then moving on to the big one, which had no highlights or anything really for me to share, but Ironman Canada. The last time it was ever going to be held here in Penticton, the swim was canceled because of uncharacteristically cold weather on the day. They set off in a TT format, drawing who goes first. And many might think, like myself, that Lionel would have loved this scenario as it does suit him to a T. But I think he'd actually be upset with this. He's been working so hard on his swim, and he obviously did this race for the practice in the lead up to Kona. And he said in his last video that he was hoping he could go low 50, but wasn't able to showcase that here, but he sure did dominate on the bike, which set him up for what seemed like a pretty easy run in for him. He didn't need to bury himself to take the win ahead of Sam Appleton, who also had a really good race there. But Sam Appleton shared in his Instagram post about it an interesting thing, and I think this is maybe why Lionel also did the race, but he said his coach Tim Reed included this race because they were a little concerned they were peaking too early for Kona and needed to back off a little. So they threw the Ironman in there because they now had a taper week, the race itself, and then 10 days of light training before a big 8-week block before Kona. So might be a good actual time for people to do some racing right now and then prep and just focus all in on Kona. And over on the women's side, it was Sarah True who took the win pretty comfortably with a really solid bike and a great run. So good redemption for her after her Lake Placid result. And I'm such a fan of Sarah True. She just blows my mind. She's kind of like Matthew Marquardt, where she somehow balances this Ironman training and racing with a pretty intense job. She said she just went through her first year in the pediatric neuropsych department. And yeah, that's just crazy to me. And she's also a mom. Yeah, top notch, and can't wait to see her race in Nice. But moving on from there, Super Tri Chicago. Now this one was kind of what I wanted to see in Boston. It looked so epic. The skyline of Chicago in the background, racing there in Lake Michigan, a beautiful, sunny, hot day. That looked much better on broadcast, and the racing was brilliant. Hayden Wilde getting his revenge, you'd have to say, over Alex Yee, who didn't make the front group thanks to a bad first swim. Although he did run really well after that, he just wasn't in contention. Hayden Wilde said he did hate the racing though, and that was because he felt like a chicken. He used other words than that, but it sounds like his team decided he should sit back a little bit more on the bike this time, and it clearly frustrated him. He didn't really have much fun out there, but it got the job done. He was able to save it for the run. Leo Berger, it was pretty close. It was good to see him back racing, and Vasco Velasa as well had a really good race. But yeah, Hayden just too good on the run. I still would love to see Konings challenge him on the run, but he got another penalty. So yeah, just frustrating. We can't quite get to see that head-to-head yet, but in London in 2 weeks, it is going to be brilliant in the men's side. Can't wait to see the likes of Vincent Louis get a little bit more into it. I think it's going to be a fantastic series. On the women's side as well, Cassandra Beaugrand and Beth Potter were a lot better here than they were last week in Boston, but they weren't able to match Georgia Taylor Brown, who said she desperately wanted this win here. It's been a while since she's held that finisher's tape. She wanted to make it hurt, and I think she regretted it a little bit because she really did make it hurt, it sounds like. All-around performance, and yeah, can't wait to see her taking on Cassandra, Beth, John Lahair, and Taylor Spivey had a brilliant third place. Always smiling, always happy. You can't not love Taylor Spivey, and I hope we get to see her challenging that for that first and second place. And yeah, just good to see her on the podium and not in fourth place, as she often is. But then moving on to the last race, and this is part of the news, and this was Challenge Sandfjord, which was supposed to take place in Norway. Actually had a decent start list, some great names on there, both the men's and the women's side. It was canceled right before they were about to start. It was actually delayed 30 minutes, I believe, due to some wind. All the athletes were on the pontoon freezing, and then all of a sudden they were told the race wasn't going to go ahead because the bike course wasn't safe. Thanks to some locals moving barriers, taking down signs, and just continuing to drive on the course, and the police couldn't guarantee the safety, so they decided to just cancel it, and that's it. And Tri247 did an interview with one of the athletes about it, and it sounded like communication wasn't that great to the athletes. In fact, the pro briefing itself was in Norwegian, and they were left with so many questions. And then yeah, after the race was canceled, they didn't know what was going on. So yeah, not a good look. It obviously was an important race there for Norwegian Triathlon, and yeah, such a pity that one couldn't go ahead. And no alternative was done. They could have done a swim run or something like that, as that interview mentioned, but no luck there. The race definitely going ahead. Ibiza T100, and we've got the start list for it. I'm so pumped, especially for the women's. We've got all 17 contracted athletes here lined up to start, which is amazing considering Nice was just 1 week before, and we've lots of these women racing it. The likes of Kat Matthews, India Lee, Chelsea Sidaro, Lucy Charles Barkley, and for me, the biggest one, Anne Haug, because we've just been dying. I know I've been dying to see the battle between her and Ashley Gentle and Taylor Knibb, arguably the three best over the T100 distance. And it'll be interesting to see how Anne bounces back and competes against those two. Taylor, you'd have to say, is the out-and-out favorite for this. She seems to be at almost every race she does. Look like she had a bit of vendetta in her veins after not doing so well at the individual event in the Olympics, but did so well in the mixed relay. She actually might be coming off a race herself because it sounded like she put in an application to be a discretionary pick for the TT World Champs in Switzerland just the week before, the same weekend as Nice. But I also put it as my hot question this week because she did say, and I did bring this up in another news video, that she would like to go to Nice if Ironman will give her a wild card. So again, what do you guys think of that? Will she be given one? Would you like to see her there? Do you think she should be there? That would obviously change things up completely, not only for T100, but that Nice race, which we'll get into so much more coming up. But I also put it on the website as well, so make sure you click on that poll for me. Right now it's 50-50 with people saying that she should get a wild card, and yeah, that's because she got the medal there at the mixed relay, if you don't know. I don't think it's likely to happen, but either way, you know she's going to come here to win this race, and she's also going to want to beat the other fellow short course athletes who are here. Finally, Flora Duffy and Taylor Spivey. I've been so looking forward to seeing these two add to the start list. Flora Duffy's less of a wild card, I think, than Taylor Spivey, but Taylor Spivey to me has all the right ingredients to do well here, and in my opinion, I think she'll do similar to how Sophie Caldwell did. She's an excellent swimmer. She could be with Lucy out the front of the race, and yeah, she's a super strong biker, but she says it is a TT crash course right now, and considering she's racing Super Tri as well, it's going to be tough to get enough in before this race, but I think she could hold on for a little bit like Sophie did, and yeah, her run is brilliant, and I doubt the distance there will hurt her too much. And then Flora, she has said that she's excited to open this new chapter of her career, now just in on long course all the way. After recovering from her injury, I just hope we get to see her race for a good few more years at this distance, and I hope it is a good starting race for her. It will be so fun to see Lucy with Flora and Taylor Spivey, and perhaps if Sophie Caldwell gets another wild card, a whole group of them coming off the front, which we don't often see with Lucy in these races. But then my picks for the wild card, you probably hear, I think Sophie Caldwell should definitely get one after her London performance. Carolyn Pohl, of course, as I just mentioned, after Talon. And I was thinking, and I think a lot of you would agree, Julie Deron, who got second at the Olympics and has also just won a couple middle distance races this year on a road bike, I think she is a definite must for this race. But you could also throw in the likes of Solveig Lovseth, the Norwegian, and many more. But those would be my picks. But real quick, I wanted to tell you about A2 bikes. If you hadn't heard me talk about them before, they are the triathlon bike company that I use. I used it before we ever got working together. That was my dream bike. I'd seen it when I first started triathlon, and then managed to pick one up, saved up for it, and I've just been loving racing on it. I now have their new SP, and it is a dream bike for me. I can't wait to race it upcoming at T100 Vegas, and I couldn't recommend this company out enough. They make really quality, high value bikes that are extremely affordable and customizable. You can choose when you go to purchase your bike, so many different options on there, and the small team out of Oregon, close to where I live, they will help you every step of the way. They're such a great team there, and they care so much about your experience. So couldn't recommend checking them out if you're interested in a new bike these days. But then moving on to the men's, they've got 16 contracted athletes racing here. The Americans Sam Long, Rudy Von Berg, Ben Canute, they've decided to skip this one. Rudy and Ben definitely focusing on Kona, whereas Magnus Ditlev is the other one. But then, I mean, all eyes this race, you have to imagine, will be on Martin Van Riel after his win in San Francisco. If he can get another big result here, you'd have to say he's the favorite for the series. But Kyle Smith was literally just millimeters off of taking that win from him there. So it'd be great to see. It's almost guaranteed. Surely he's going to get a wild card to come race here. It'd be great to see those two go head to head. But honestly, I've been out and doing some filming of Yuri Kulin while I'm here in Girona. I actually just saw Kyle and Martin as well today, but Yuri is looking in fine form, and I think surely he's going to get a wild card to race here, and I can't wait to see those three go head to head. Those are definitely my picks for the win. But that means we've got two other wildcard spots available for the men's race, and my picks for that, definitely Mika Newt, who's racing this next weekend coming up in Zell MC. He's high in the standings, 5th and 6th place result already, and yeah, I think you've definitely got to give it to him and give him a shot at the overall standings. standings. But then that leaves up another slot, and you've got the likes of Gregory Barnaby, he did well in London, and Frankfurt recently, so good. And now Koolhaas as well, same story. Jan Stratman, he's a great choice, but I think there's definitely a chance the likes of Hayden Wild will put his name up for this one. Also, you never know, the Norwegians could do this one as well. They're both racing Challenge Samarkand, which might make that the middle distance race they choose to race before Kona, but you never know. They could throw this one in, and yeah, I just think it's gonna be the best wildcard lineup we've seen yet. Early picks, like I said, Yuri, Kyle, and Martin Van Riel. The other big news around T100 right now, the grand final has yet to be announced. It's almost September. It's just a few months away, and athletes, I've heard, don't even know as well. So that's putting a lot of stress on them. It's only a couple weeks before the 70.3 World Champs, and a lot of these guys will be hoping to race both. I've heard some people say it might even not go ahead, or they have to change destination, or they have to make it to the Dubai race a couple weeks before. So that would change up everything in this series, so I don't know if that's going to go ahead, but yeah, just crazy that we haven't heard it. They've always said it'll be announced soon. Obviously some things going on in the background there that they didn't anticipate. Of course, T100 will hope to get that out as soon as they possibly could, but yeah, some big news going to come out from there, I'm sure, soon, and hopefully for the athletes it is actually soon. Other pieces of news this week, Jonas Deichmann broke the world record, 106 Ironmans in 106 days, beating Sean Conway's record. He's now currently on day 111 today. Had 100 other runners running with him today. He is clearly made a huge stamp on that Rothtown, and it's just unbelievable. He's going for 120 days. But shout out to Wright Radisep for a second. He did a Deca Ironman, 10 Ironmans in a row. He went on average sub 10 for each of those, breaking the world record himself. Absolutely insane. And then he also, back in the day, I looked this up as well, he did 60 Ironmans in 60 days. But for those, he averaged under 11 hours. And I don't think I ever heard about that back then, so I had to share that. Whereas Jonas Deichmann is doing about 14 to 14 and a half on his. So yeah, that guy is insane. And both of those guys deserve to be mentioned within the pro race reporting that I do, because it's just incredible what they're doing. I could never imagine doing something like that. But other than that, not too much news coming out. The Paralympics is starting next week, and some people are concerned over the Seine as always, but also the current for those athletes and how they might have to do a point-to-point swim and have them start way back on the Seine, close to the Louvre, it sounds. So hopefully that goes ahead. I'll keep an eye out on that for you. But yeah, all the hype now is starting to move towards Nice, September 22nd. I can't wait to do a good preview for that. Of course, we'll have fantasy going, so get ready to start thinking about your picks. Of course, still got plenty of upcoming races until then. This weekend, another Pro Series race, number 15, Zell MC. Huge start list here, both men's and women's side, as always with these Pro Series races. We got Carolyn Pohl back on the women's side. We've got Ellie Salthouse coming back to race this one. She hasn't raced in a while, but she's had a brilliant season. And Laura Madsen, that 21-year-old who is just flying this year. Plenty other good names here as well. And on the men's side, Jan Stratman, Nicholas Mann, those two Germans, but also Mika Newt and Hella Gaines, who's now made the full switch over to long course. So yeah, that was gonna be a cracker. But that's all we got for this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.